Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. I don't work for Block. Well, I would probably be happy if I worked for Block or stopped working for Block today. If you look at their compensation package, pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff for them. Let me get my mic the way I like my mic. Hope you're all doing well. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Make sure we're all rolling on the channels. Looks like we got the folks on Rumble going great. Good morning. Hope everyone has a great day, except maybe Jane Street. We hate the Jane Street people, don't we? Noha, hi. Happy Friday. If Jane Street got caught, why is price still depressed? Well, I think mostly the price was down because indeed whales were selling. I think Willie Woo has it correct. I don't think Willie is incorrect in his observation that there was a kind of IPO moment. But I'd say mostly it's because the Bitcoin economy has been severely crippled by all of the manipulation since Terra Luna. I mean, crypto is dying and it's still trying to it's giving life to Bitcoin, if you will, as crypto dies. I don't think that's going to reverse in any time. Now, the crypto companies are going to keep changing what they do. I think they'll be fine, Coinbase and many others, but there's a transition going on, and I don't think anyone gets what they want until Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve and pumps like crazy. So I've always been of the mind that Bitcoin doesn't get its true pump until Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve and you really start seeing the dollar become food stamps, which is what we're going to see. And I'm going to tell you all about it today. We're going to go and see about bimetallism and how close we are. Jane Street News was pleb slop, according to Hellstew. Well, it was real, but it's also systemic. So pleb slop in the sense that it's suddenly going to be over after one day. I mean, they really were manipulating the market every day at 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. But this idea that we'd removed them and suddenly we would have everything we ever wanted was just never the case because of the damage done from the manipulation. So Jane Street is really a malicious actor. But you got to consider the downstream effects of it. And, you know, it's like the meme now, buy the dip with what money? Everyone's broke. There's no one has any money. I know because I look, you know, where I go looking for money in the event and marketing and let's call it experience world is usually one of the first things that gets added when companies have extra money and gets cut when they're all in trouble. And even just from looking at viewership numbers across the board, I mean, you look at all the big shows, all the numbers are down. And you look at people's spends on marketing, those are all down. So from my vantage point, we don't always use the price of Bitcoin per se as a proxy to understand the health of the market. We knew there was never a real bull market because of what was being spent or wasn't being spent and what was happening with general views across media. So the Bitcoin culture world, the world of Bitcoiners and Bitcoin lifestyle and all that is severely affected by the years of manipulation and are not going to be able to spring right back to life. Now, the more boring stuff, the Bitcoin for corporations and all the sailor stuff that a lot of Bitcoiners don't see as endemic to Bitcoin. I mean, that stuff's taking over, right? That's, and we'll talk about it today, but that was always my prediction. That doesn't change. That Bitcoin's future is really with the remnant of Wall Street and the consolidation of the energy market, and it was never going to be some plebs who had some Bitcoin, and it's just not. This just wasn't going to be the case. There's too many NPCs in the world. And we're never going to get enough NPCs on the winning team to affect any change. We're going to talk about that today. It's why, though, one Bitcoiner is worth 1 million NPCs or 10 million NPCs or whatever is because of the effect they're going to have on the world and how that's going to go. The world is bifurcating. It's splitting in two, just like the money is splitting in two. Block 938,584, 66,000 US trash tokens. Good morning, Great Awakeners. Looks like Jack Dorsey gives permission for the rest of us to fire their worthless asses. We're talking all about Jack Dorsey. I'll get into that in a moment. Good morning, gang. Morning, wake up, gang. Listen, this is from Charlosky. Listen to Stefan Molyneux's latest podcast, and he does go scorched earth on some no coiners. Dude is an assassin. I'm telling you, and Charlosky says, looks like he's back. Again, that's kind of a great symbol of what was lost from market manipulation, from media manipulation, from being in the center of the culture wars. Stefan Molyneux should have just been a counterweight to Andreas Antonopoulos throughout the early era of Bitcoin into the woke stuff, but they had already canceled him and kicked him off all the platforms. He was always one of the really early, and I love Andreas. I don't mean antidote like you got to reverse Andreas's effect on the industry. Not at all what I mean. They had a lot in common. The example of them debating would have been better for humanity, and we didn't let it happen. And we lost a lot from kicking people like Molyneux out. Molyneux should be today deploying capital for every angel idea he likes. Instead, he's still out there looking for money, and he's got to make some money, and he has the Bitcoin he has, but he never got to be as supremely wealthy and successful as he ought to have been. I mean, imagine that Bitcoiners had a massive YouTube channel at their disposal with one of the best online hosts in the world. And that should have been, if he would have never been caught up in the Trump stuff because people were not suffering from Trump derangement syndrome and weapons grade military brainwashing, we'd have had Stefan Molyneux all these years. And it would have been great. Instead, he had to go into the culture wars and get torn apart and shredded and whatever else they did to him. Luckily, he survived. I mean, we're lucky he's back around and has been respawned for the golden age. And it was just not meant to be. It would have been almost too easy to have him around all these years. We would have won a long time ago. So it's not part of the gameplay. But he is an assassin. Look out for him. Good morning, gang. Hellstew says, I want to know Nolan's take on Jimmy Wales and his Bitcoin FUD. Dude is messed up. Yeah. Well, I don't know about messed up. What I see is someone who hasn't really understood that economics are psychological and not mathematical. And I'll talk a little bit. So if you didn't see it, we had Jimmy Wales say, basically, Bitcoin's stupid, it's failed, and it's going to persist because of hobbyists, and there'll be some Bitcoiners around, and that will make it continue on, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what he doesn't see is the separation, the coming separation of money and state, and the coming bifurcation, everything I just mentioned about the economy, about having food stamps and US dollars on one end for the NPCs and the sludge people. We're really seeing the sludge people, everyone agreeing, what did I say for many years with the UBI? UBI is coming, guys. Food stamps and the US dollar are one and the same pretty soon, which is why the Wall Street component and the energy component are so important, because that's the real economy. And Wall Street will be completely downsized and altered in its form, but people who just want to risk and bet on markets and bet on their predictions, that's going to continue, and they'll need Bitcoin for it. So that's why our infection of Wall Street is so important. And actually, what you're going to get today with all the news, with war and with Iran and with the block downsizing. If you didn't catch that story, there was 40%, I think, of block employees were fired yesterday, which spurred this whole conversation on UBI. You're going to get my original, and it still holds up, presentation. I'm not going to do the exact presentation, but the structure of what I used to talk about. I think I've mentioned it to you a few times before. I did it at Columbia University in 2019, maybe something like that. And it was all about Coase theorem and the trickle down of cryptography and what it meant for the society going forward. And this was more or less the presentation I gave for many, many years. This was the presentation I gave for many, many years on Wall Street. This was the presentation I used for a long time to educate people in the long-term view of what was going to happen to markets and what the effect of all this change was going to be, and to Wall Street itself. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that old presentation I did. 1 second. Okay. I don't know what just happened. Hold on. I just got to do one thing here, folks. Or two things. Just give me 1 second. I will. Do I have a commercial break I can go to? I just need 2 seconds here. Sorry, guys. There's something with my phone. Just a second. Okay, I'm back. I'm back, everyone. I'm back. Pardon me for that, everybody. I had some weird message and I had to make sure everything was cool. You never know what's going on these days with these schemers and scammers. Let me get back to my comments. So yeah, Jimmy Wales, I don't know about messed up. I just think he's given up on being able to accurately predict the future. He's been wrong about everything. So remember, you just got to look at people's track record in general. Jimmy Wales has said this about what we're talking about before. He's been on he's one of the most wrong people in the world. So, and he's allowed his company to be fucked to death by all these disgusting folks that hate the future. Wise and wonderful, full of mercy, able to save our living God, Prince of Peace. Yo, Chatelet, escape the Matrix indeed. Good morning, Chef. Blessing of abundance. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew. Happy Friday. Glad to be at the Bitcoin Learning Center, Leering Center. We're leering today. We're doing the leering, indeed. We're doing the leering. We're doing the leering. 321 Showtime deck count is in the house. Good morning, folks. Last trading day for silver and gold. Open interest is still high in February contract. Who's getting wrecked? Bodies to show up soon, says 72 Jet. Indeed. Life is grand, bullish as ever on the future today, says barely 45. Indeed. Uncle Jack is down on Bitcoin conferences, says we're putting a target on our heads. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. Sagane Sank Sank. That is a I've moved more to Uncle Jack cruise. Yeah, I've moved more to smaller events anyways. I mean, I'll still go to a couple of the big events, but it's a problem. I'd say large events in general are a problem, not just Bitcoin. I think there's a case to be made for a lot of this stuff. I mean, how's the World Cup going to go this summer? Do you guys think it's all going to be great? I don't know. I have my doubts. I'm not going to any World Cup games. I'll tell you that right now. We got midterms coming up. We got mental illness all across America. Who knows what's going on? We'll see. Hopefully not. I don't want to be a doomer about it. So there you go. I'd say Jack Cruz is less concerned with his safety and more concerned with the cohort that must persist. I have, if I have his messaging right. Yeah, something like that. Keep your phone on a swivel, indeed, Chef Zero. You got to have all these notifications for those important things. I thought I was talking about Dorsey. I was talking about Dorsey originally, but Jack Cruz on the events, I think, is what people said. There you go. There you go. Okay, everyone. Let's acknowledge we got a major sunrise on our hands. And indeed, Bitcoin is running. We're doing great, everyone. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Jeff Neubauer in the house. Jeff Neubauer, Jesus says, good morning and God bless. God bless you too. All right, that's our coffee. Now I've got some very special NPC news for all of you this morning. Very special. We've done a great job. There's some beautiful ones. And I think maybe one of my all-time favorites is here today. Science is outdoing itself. I think I'm going to start with it, actually, because it's just such high quality. I think I need to. It's just too good. This is from the Associated Press, everyone. You're not going to believe the science that the Associated Press has provided. You're not going to believe it. I'm going to even play the video just so you know what's going on. This is the news, guys. This is actually in the news. And scientists, if anyone ever tells you about trusting scientists or the scientists or you're not a scientist, show them this story. The Associated Press says, ever wondered why basketball sneakers are constantly squeaking as they run around the court? Now, scientists have studied what's happening and have found the phenomena is caused. Wait a minute. Sit down. Sit down, everybody. Scientists have studied it and they figured it out. It's caused by the soft material of the soles of your shoes rippling on the floor. What? Is your mind blown? Can you handle it? It's true. The squeaking on the floor is caused by the shoes rippling on the floor. It's true. They're going to explain it to you. Look at
this squeaking sound when players are sliding on the floor is omnipresent. It's always there, right? And it's somehow the sound signature of the NBA. In our lab, we have access to really high-speed cameras, and we have access to basketball shoes. So the experiment was at first a very simple one. Why do basketball shoes squeak? Squeaking is basically your shoe rippling, or your shoe creating wrinkles that travel super fast, and they repeat at a high frequency, high cadence, and this is why you get this squeaking noise. You did not expect such violent events to take place on your shoe.
You would never expect it. No, I would never have guessed. I had no idea. I thought it was just the sound of the floor. I would have never guessed. Never in a million years would I have guessed that the squeaking noise was shoes rippling with friction on the floor. Never in a million years. Who could have guessed? Who could have guessed? It's real. Jack2K says, Nolan, without the experts explaining the squeaking sound of a basketball shoes on the floor, I don't know what I would do with myself. It's true. How many US trash tokens did the experts spend on that study? Not enough. It's vital to humanity. It's vital. It's the most important. Save the shoes from such violence in basketball. It's unbelievable. It's just, I thought it was just the sound of the basketball court, but no, it's actually the shoes slipping. It's a real story. Science. What else are the scientists telling us? They have more information. They're full of information. This is what we know. Science podcast. Antarctica's oldest ice, everyone. Antarctica's oldest ice holds the key to unlocking Earth's climate secrets, fresh off the big win of discovering the correlation and the cause and effect of shoes and squeaking in a basketball court. Now they're actually going to take old ice and unlock the climate secrets. They're in the ice. They're going to get in the ice. They're going to see what's up. And they're going to know everything from the ice. The ice is old. It's got secrets. It's secret ice, secret holding ice. The ice is in the secrets are in the ice. Man, this is bad news. The world remains unprepared. Why scientists are calling for a global assessment of climate change. We've never done it. We've never done all of this. Global warming was never a global assessment of climate change. They're just getting started, guys. They haven't started the work yet. It was all just a thought, and now they're actually going to go and do a global assessment. All this mystery solved. The secrets are in the ice. The basketball court breakthrough. Will climate change bring major hurricane landfalls to the United States? We don't know. But you said last year for sure there was a movie and you said it was going to happen all the time. What happened to that? It's all gone. Oh, no. We got more stuff. Scientists very concerned about Trump, everyone. Very concerned. Science and sex, gender, the science of sex and gender being misrepresented by Trump officials, expert warn. Trump is out there misrepresenting the science of sex, the same science that finally cracked the squeaking code. That same science, scientists say crackdown on gender-affirming care would have impact on healthcare for all Americans. Everyone screwed. If you don't let people cut their dicks off, your healthcare is going away. It's going to have effects for everyone. Scientists. Now we got policy experts. This is what I got. The next one. Trump said tariffs could someday substantially replace income taxes. What policy experts say? During the State of the Union address, President Trump said tariffs could someday substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax. He previously floated the idea during his 2024 presidential campaign and has revisited while in office. But Congress must approve federal income tax changes. Some policy experts remain skeptical of the idea based on the potential tax base and other factors. There it is. They're sure it can't happen. No. Come on, New York Times. Give me a chance here. Give me a chance. Let me read it. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. Trump's 2 minutes away won't pay bills. There. That's it. Their opinion about his State of the Union. Trump's 2 minutes hate won't pay the bills. Thank you. We got that one. There we go. That's our fake news for the day, everybody. That's our fake news. That's what we got. All right, now into other news. So our first story looks like all kinds of deployment is going to Iran. It looks like the United States has told even its Israeli ambassadors and American citizens in Israel split because conflict is coming. It looks like the Russians and Chinese and everybody's doing the same. Everyone's being told to split from the region. Get out while you can. Khamenei better take note of the sheer amount of American force heading to the region this week, according to Mario Nawfal. So a huge buildup, F-22s, F-35s, a huge order for everyone to leave and split. So we'll see what's going on. To me, it looks like they're continuing to use the deployment for leverage. But they also still have an exit plan. They haven't obviously engaged yet, and it looks like they're operational for in case this happens. What I continue to predict is it won't. I could be wrong. I think they're going to get what they want with negotiating and leverage. So I continue to take all of this mobilization as a sign that they're serious about strike. I don't think they're bluffing. I think they might do it. But I also believe that barring any crazy false flag or crazy Iranian incursion into Israel or any of these places. I think that America will likely to continue to negotiate and will keep things mostly peaceful. I'm not sure if I'm right, but anyway, we'll see. What we do know, though, is that the aircraft carrier headed there, that's on its way. It's in Israel now. The Ford, sailing towards Iran. Alex Jones here predicting what I predicted many years ago, and this is partly why I don't think you're going to see an engagement. And I think it's just negotiating, because Alex Jones, myself, are not the only people who know this about U.S. projection of power. I do believe Trump and most of his advisors, including Hegseth, are aware of this. There is still a use for aircraft carriers, but the symbolism of one being sunk right now in a hot war is not good. And Alex Jones says the following: the Pentagon's own war games show China can sink the USS Gerald Ford, and China has handed the Iran the tools to prove it. The leaked 2025 Overmatch brief, the most classified U.S. naval simulation conducted last year, concluded that in a Taiwan conflict, Chinese hypersonic, so hypersonic just means really fast, right? It's still just normal ballistic missiles. But the speed at which they're going means that they can do incredible damage and could easily take out one of these aircraft carriers. Now, it's not such simple science, because an aircraft carrier can move, and the rockets can hit targets that don't move. They're good at hitting static targets. No idea if they can hit moving targets. Probably not. As fast as they are, it still takes time to get to the location, and enough time by far for the aircraft carriers to move. Again, I don't think the real vulnerability aircraft carriers have is necessarily in hypersonics. I think it's in cheap drones and other unconventional warfare and new warfare tools that are out there. But this is one of my earliest predictions that we will see a melted, burnt aircraft carrier within this World War III, because they're just not what they used to be. They're not the linchpin of power projection. They're not the centerpiece of a military hardware formation. They're just a bygone era. In fact, psychologically, when I'm just talking with people about what's going on in the world, the line that I've used with you guys before, and that I use just casually in these conversations that I have with everyone, and as I'll often say, just to give the widest macro version of the change we're going through, that America, I'll say it like this: America won World War II by consolidation of all of these powers into DC. It created the federal government apparatus that we still have to this day. And I use the aircraft carrier as an example. Basically, everything we used to win World War II, aircraft carriers and the Cold War stuff, all of that, we never shut it off. That's what America essentially is a large aircraft carrier that is completely redundant, that doesn't do its job anymore. But we go through this whole pantomime to keep the thing running, even though it doesn't secure what it used to, it doesn't project what it used to, and is much more vulnerable, and is actually weighing us down and slowing us down at this point. And so what I've said about Bitcoin for a long time, and what I've said about the fourth turning, or whatever framework you want to use to describe the time of change we're going, is that we've got to just basically shut the aircraft carrier down and rebuild. And that's what we're talking about today. And it's just great, just good timing that you had Alex Jones say the exact same thing: the vulnerability and obsolescence of the aircraft carrier. Now, I still think there's some utility of an aircraft carrier. I don't know all of the implications of what's going on with aircraft carriers. I'm sure there's still something. They're in flotillas now. They're part of armadas. There's other things going on than just that. But indeed, the $13.3 billion crown jewel of American naval power, destroyed in a simulation by the same country that is now selling CM-302 hypersonic anti-ship missiles to Iran and delivering electronic warfare systems capable of jamming F-35s operating from carrier decks. The Ford departed Suda Bay, Greece yesterday. She is heading directly toward the theater where those weapons are being transferred. China is running the most elegant strategic operation of the 21st century, and doing it in plain sight. Step 1, prove in your own war games that you can kill the carrier. Step 2, sell the missile technology to the country the carrier is being sent against. Step 3, deliver electronic warfare packages that degrade the carrier's air wing. Step 4, Photograph every ascent in the strike architecture and publish it so the target knows exactly what is coming and from where. Step 5, sit back and watch whether America sails its most valuable warship into the kill zone anyway. If the Ford survives, China learns how American carrier defenses actually perform against the weapon systems China designed. If the Ford is hit, China has achieved the single most consequential military intelligence victory since Enigma. Real-world combat data on how to sink an American supercarrier without firing a shot themselves. Iran is not the opponent. Iran is the laboratory. Miser Vision has photographed the F-22s at Ovda, the empty berths at Bahrain, the tankers at Diego Garcia, and now the Ford's departure from Greece. Beijing has constructed a real-time intelligence mosaic of the entire American order of battle and distributed it freely. Every satellite pass is a page in the targeting manual China is writing through Iranian hands. Pentagon insiders told Politico they have 7 to 10 days of munitions. Trump decides tomorrow at 3 p.m. Task Force Scorpion's kamikaze drones stand ready to extend the campaign with $35,000 Shahed clones with the Tomahawks run dry. Geneva produced progress without agreement. The demands remain unbridgeable, and the Ford sails toward missiles that were designed in Chinese laboratories, tested in Chinese simulations, and sold to the country America says it will strike by March. China did not pick a side. China built the chessboard, armed both players, and positioned itself to learn from whoever loses. The Ford is not sailing toward Iran. The Ford is sailing into a Chinese experiment, and the results will determine who controls the Pacific for the next 50 years. Now, I don't believe that's the truth. I do believe that the 50-year control, I don't think is the truth. Even if America is confronted with the complete end of its previous military configurations, it doesn't mean anybody gets to get the Pacific. China can't hold it, just like America can't hold it, just like nobody can hold it. If America can't hold these things, nobody can. And their little fishing boats and all that stuff ain't going to do it either, because if hypersonics really can hit these large carriers, well, guess what? The Chinese ones are going to get hit too. And I don't even think you need the hypersonics. I think you can do it with these drones and with other devices and with the space weapons that the Americans have. I'm pretty sure we have no idea how power is going to be projected militarily. I just think that the decentralization of it is the biggest story. Now, it's not just the hardware, because like I said, the intelligence and the new tools are what are more important. And you've got this story here with Anthropic apparently rejecting the Pentagon's final offer for unrestricted military use of AI. This is a more important story, I think, than what's going on in Iran. And this is a better proxy to understand what actually is happening in deadliness of weapons, the cost of violence. And remember, the cost of violence is one of the big variables, one of the big dramatic reasons for which that book Sovereign Individual moves forward. They calculate the cost of violence to explain the changes to standing national armies, right? The point of a standing national army in the beginning was because the professionalism that was in soldiering before, right? Before we had these standing armies, before we had national armies, before Napoleon, before the English, what you had were professional orders and the knights who were professional soldiers. So when you hear something like 100 Years' War, and you wonder, what was that like, 100 years of war? Well, it didn't really affect as many normal people as you think. Now, definitely people were captured and raped and enslaved and all that. So I don't want to make it sound like there was no consequences to the everyday person. There were. But within the Christian nations, what you had were knights, and you had courtly culture, and you had professional soldiers. And the reason why there weren't any military uniforms back then was simple. It was because the soldiers were professionals, and they knew each other from their regalia. Not so different today from a professional sports team with all of their sponsors. And you look at the soccer uniforms, that's kind of like what happened to armies, right? You see the national soccer uniforms and it's just the country colors, but the actual soccer teams are much better than the national. It's a bigger league, it's got more more fans, more games, more stadiums. Just a second. So these private soccer clubs with all of their regalia and all of their sponsors on their jerseys, like, it was always a thing to people from North America that we had a lot of trouble with the soccer uniforms because they look so ugly with all the ads on them. But now we got ads too in our North American uniforms, so we can't get that precious about it all anymore. But all these guys are similar to what the soldiers of yore were like. They were kind of for hire, they were kind of professional, and they recognized each other by the different feathers and shields and crests and everything that went into their armor and how they decorated and adorned themselves. And so the professionalization of war changed when gunpowder was invented, and the cost of violence changed. The scale of how we did war changed, because then you could take any idiot off the street. And samurai, and the Japanese history is another great example. The samurai was a class. They were allowed weapons, no one else was. And the national armies, remember, the shogunate was a professional arrangement, a government out of the samurai class, out of the warriors. They created a government. And it wasn't the emperor. The emperor was not a part of it. And when the emperor was reinstalled by private interests and merchants, it's because the merchants knew about gunpowder. They bought it from the Americans, and they bought the guns and the cannons and everything, and were able to subdue the professional samurai soldiers because you didn't have to train soldiers anymore. It wasn't sword play. It wasn't bow and arrow. It wasn't horseback. It was none of those things. It was stand in a line, load your gun, and shoot. And once that happened, you had standing armies because you didn't need professionals anymore. You can consolidate all this power into a centralized entity. So that's what the book Sovereign Individual describes as the economic motivation for nation states in the first place. From our perspective, now that we have these AI tools, now that you have the drones threatening the aircraft carriers, now that all this is very apparent, what you're going to see is the re-professionalization, the re-individuation of soldiering and fighting and all of these things. You're going to have actual individual heroes, not these great big armies and who knows who's in the army and who cares. The army went forward. It's not going to be that anymore. It's not like World War II with massive invasion forces and trenches and all these things. It's drones and robots and AI and video game superstars that have huge kill lists and all these things. So here you have Claude and Anthropic rejecting the Pentagon's final offer for unrestricted military use of its AI. So first of all, I believe this is quite a bit of virtue signaling. It's not so different than what you see in politics. And you've got Dean Ball and Beth Bezos both saying the same thing. The cynical take on all this is that Anthropic is just trying to be made into a martyr by this administration so that it can be official resistance AI. If that cynical take is true, the administration is playing right into the hands of Anthropic. Beth Bezos says exactly what's happening. Can we get beyond the posturing waste of everyone's time? The U.S. warfighters should have the best technology on hand consistently. Anything else is jeopardizing. Anything less is jeopardizing national security. So I do think they're going to get there. Beth Bezos goes on and says AI safetyism is a psyop amplified by foreign adversaries to defang the U.S. Again, which is why World War III is psychological and economic. The economics of this and the psychology of this matter more than what's actually happening in the theater of war. Just the same as in Iran. The same as in Iran. Programming a cultural value function that incentivizes deceleration in exchange for social capital within an in-group, effectively using anxious status-seeking EAs as puppets. And I believe that's true. It's the same as we see in the political sphere. You know, this is a fun video that's gone a little viral today because Bram Constein sent it out. Let me know if the volume comes through.
Are you left-wing? Because my entire ego is constructed on the foundations of a moral superiority complex, which itself is pegged to a pathological hyperreality that, when challenged or questioned, makes me extremely angry and aggressive because it feels like my entire identity is under existential threat. And I developed this mental model as an adolescent in order to make sense of the unfairness of nature. But due to lacking the introspective courage to challenge my own beliefs, it's easier to just pretend to not to understand things than face the terror of realizing that I might have been misled my entire life and could even be rejected by the tribe. So it's kind of like a defense mechanism. I have to pretend to find that term problematic. Oh, right, sorry, yeah.
And that's what it is. There's psychological blocks to all this happening, and those psychological blocks are simply not going to stop what is inevitable, what is happening. Here's Alex Karp describing it, because it's not just Anthropic. You're in a marketplace of ideas with AI, and indeed them posturing to be the resistance AI is just not going to hold water.
A small island in Silicon Valley that would love to decide what you eat, how you eat, and monetize all your data should not also decide who lives in your country and on what your conditions. There are elections, there are rules, they should be enforced. A transfer of one presidency to another, and the view of Silicon Valley that we get to decide should not be the way these things are decided. Of course, this led to protests. My house has been protested for many months, almost every day. Our offices have been protested. Many Palantirians who do not just follow what I say, but are critical people, protested against it internally. Some people were so upset about it that they left. These are very hard decisions. I respect the people that decide they can't be involved in this, but we have a position.
And are you comfortable, though, with the Trump administration's approach on the border?
Look, everybody who knows me personally like you knows that I've been a card-carrying progressive my whole life. My family is progressive. I have a degree in what amounts to progressive thought. Obviously, there are many things I would do differently, and I've never stopped being critical of this administration. I'm not planning to vote for this administration. So there are things I do differently. The core issue, though, is who decides. And let me, to the people who want to reduce the complexity, it's commonly known that our software is used in operational contexts at war. Do you really think the warfighter is going to trust a software company that pulls the plug because something becomes controversial with their life? Currently, when you're a warfighter, your life depends on your software. They will never trust you if you pull the plug just because you're unpopular.
So there's economic incentives here, and he's right. No one will ever trust you. And it's an important distinction, because like there's still an instance where people like this matter. And these types of warfighters, the actual individuals, this is the return to the professionalism of war. This guy is not a drone you send to D-Day to storm a beach, and then maybe he lives, maybe he dies. This is not human cannon fodder. This is a highly trained, extremely valuable, split decision-making, second, third order effects, instantly calculated warfighter. This guy has no time for your woke shit. He's not listening to it. Sightbringer breaks it down. He says, if you sat across from a person who has been in real combat for years, you would not think a Giga Chad. You would feel a quiet gravity. You would notice the way they scan a room. You would notice the way they speak in short packets. You would notice they do not romanticize anything. Most of them are not addicted to glory. They are addicted to clarity. The world that they come from has simple logic. Do the right thing or people die. Do it again tomorrow. That clarity is rare in civilian life. Civilian life is negotiations, incentives, plausibility, optics. So the myth forms because people miss clarity more than they miss comfort. The final layer, the real aura warfare, is integrity under pressure. The ability to do what you said you would do when it costs you something. When you are tired, when you're scared, when nobody's watching, when there's no applause. That is the part almost no one wants to hear, because it means you do not need a war to be tested. You can be tested today. Tell the truth when lying would be easier. Keep the promise when breaking it would be convenient. Train when you do not feel like it. Do the boring work. Stop coping with the phone. Stand in the arena. This is not going to change from AI. People who do this or don't do that, who act, who don't act, who contemplate, who virtue signal versus doing what has to be done, that divide is more important than ever. Just the virtue signaling and the doomerism that comes from all of this is simply not going to last. Now, that brings me to the question of what's going on with all the jobs and with all the AI stuff. And, we had Block yesterday say AI saved us a bunch of money. We had to fire all kinds of people. And everyone's talking about that right now. We see here, get ready to lose your job. And they put all the jobs here. You've got Pat Stedman saying, in every one of these areas, humans will still need to be present to monitor and make second and third order judgments. But that's still an enormous permanent elimination of work, especially for everyone under 115 IQ. This means directionally correct and serious. This remains directionally correct and serious. The only area I seriously doubt the same disruption is in art or anything involving transformation, because information or technical skills are only a small part of why we value these things to begin with. What we really value is the story, the heart in it, and how it makes us feel. What we value is the truth and the lesson. AI might be able to create any song, but if it's not anchored in emotional experience, nobody will actually want to listen to it. In the end, the only ones who will become useless are those who can't learn how to truly be human. That's why I've been telling you for a long time, when I wrote the career guide to the fiat apocalypse, that the old jobs are the new jobs, that being good at being a father or a husband or a mother or a wife or a grandmother or an aunt or an uncle or a brother or a sister, all of these things are really hard, and we're not good at them at all. These jobs are in high demand. The reason why things are so terrible is not because of brainwashing. Well, it got us there, but it's still, we have a failure of motherhood. We have a failure of fatherhood across the board, across genders, across races, across cultures. It's everywhere, and it's permeating everything that we do. We have all these fake laptop jobs, but the real jobs, were terrible, just absolutely abysmally terrible. And those jobs have a high demand because that's what is going to fix a lot of our problems. And as we innovate and we realize more and more that we're bad at these things, that they're actually really hard to do. It's not that you don't just get to choose to be a good wife and mother or husband and father. These are hard things to do. Really hard. You got to read the Bible and all the advice is in there and you got to follow it. And it's not simple. It's really not simple. It's one of the hardest jobs out there. Now, it can be simple. You can live these jobs and you can fail at them and get better at them and learn along your way like any other job. It's no different. But that's why the power that's coming to us with Bitcoin, that's why the power that's coming to us with AI, that's why the power that comes to us with cryptography was the main beginning, anyway, of that story that I told people on Wall Street for a long time. That the process we're seeing here is this military technology trickle down, cryptography, AI, all of this stuff has as its original purpose military uses. Cryptography, like you heard, the Enigma machine, like you heard straight up from Alex Jones in my first post from the morning here about the aircraft carriers, saying this is the biggest change since the Nazi Enigma machine. Remember why we invented computers in the first place, why we modernized cryptography to get in this game was to crack the Enigma machine. Computers are called computers for this reason, not word processors or nothing like that. They're called computers because their original function, their original application was in cryptography, crunching huge numbers at speeds that human minds simply could not scale to. And that's why Alan Turing was a cryptographer. And for many years, cryptography was in the sole domain of this world of military state secrets and military applications. And it wasn't, it was 500 years or something. It was the Venetian banks that were the last cryptographic innovators before it fully went into this centralized economic war model that I told you about before. It was in the private sphere, but as militaries began to centralize, they imbibed cryptography and secret telling into them. They knew all the old innovations from Rome. They knew all of the history of cryptography. Until then, they had all the techniques, the cipher, the different ways of encrypting. And before computers, it was 100% for 500 years within the military sphere. And the result of World War II, of course, is they explicitly stated from then on that cryptography itself was a military application and counted as a munition, which is why cryptography was illegal to practice, to commercialize, to do many things with for decades after World War II, because it was state secrets and because the power was seen as militaristic in its nature. Imagine telling secrets and using mathematical functions was seen as a military application, which is why the famous T-shirt of Adam Back when he was the early cypherpunk, that's what cypherpunks were very concerned about, by the way. That was why cypherpunks were instantly a small state oriented, because they knew their entire world of cryptography, ciphers, all of that was already 100% embedded in this post-World War II war structure, and it was stuck there, and they didn't quite know how to get it out. Now, Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman and Ralph Merkle and all of these people, when they invented public key cryptography, it was a big deal because it was the first civilian innovation to invent public key cryptography for the internet, which they knew was coming. It was the first commercial innovation from the private sector outside of the military apparatus since the Venetian bankers and all that stuff hundreds of years earlier. And now the system they created when they invented public key cryptography was a slight bastardization. Instead of the state with public key infrastructure, you ended up having the corporation, the actual corporation, becoming the main steward of cryptography. They became certificate authorities, which is why Nick Szabo and others said any third party, which is what they became. Corporations became the third party in the cryptographic relationship between Alice and Bob. And because Alice and Bob couldn't deal bilaterally with public key cryptography, even though it was a perfect technology to conduct bilateral financial communication relationships. Doesn't have to be communications, it can be financial. Because they all deemed we were too stupid. And we probably were, running cryptographic keys back in the 80s. Probably people still didn't know how to set their VCRs. Remember that meme? That's true. These were not technically or cryptographically competent people. So corporations, after deeming everyone too stupid to run cryptographic keys themselves, ran them for you. Now, that was a good idea. We didn't know it was going to turn out the way it turned out. And all these guys, by the way, that invented like Whitfield Diffie, he fought hard against the Clipper, against government surveillance, against all of these things. He was a big proponent of all these things. But at the same time, he consulted with all of these military apparatus on key management. Actual key management is how they would advise and create systems for nuclear keys, for example, bomb deployment keys, missile deployment keys. They had all the tricks about how you keep it on this ship and how many people and how you can properly deploy weapon systems. And I've had conversations with Whitfield Diffie about this. Whitfield Diffie is a cryptographer first and foremost, and not that sentimental about the players. As wizardly as he is, he was very impressed by the Venezuelans, for example, having caught Bitcoin miners by looking at grid consumption at the time. That was 2017. He says, wow, that's very clever. And, he created a lot of key management schemes for the US military over the years. And so they had this idea of keys being managed by corporations, a very normal idea. It was a thing that went on. It was a thing that people believed in. Now, what Satoshi did that was different was he made the cryptographic keys money. That was the innovation of Bitcoin. That was the big innovation. The thing that all the cryptographers had been seeking to create was the elegant orchestration of technology that is underlying Bitcoin, that has allowed it to survive as this living, breathing, almost organism on the internet that doesn't have a security budget, that doesn't have a corporate staff, that is able to live in a truly decentralized way. And public key cryptography's widest deployment, almost from the moment Bitcoin got a little bit of traction, it became automatically the widest deployment of public key cryptography in the history of the world, and remains so today. And so public key infrastructure doesn't really count as public key cryptography being deployed because you don't have the keys. You give someone else your dog's name or your mother's maiden name, and then they give you the keys and they run your keys for you. That's public key infrastructure that you see on the internet to this day. And so when we had this reorientation, I argued from then on that this power of cryptography trickling down to the individual, I told Wall Street this from the very beginning, that what you're seeing is a reconfiguration of the economy because you're empowering individuals. Just like the gunpowder empowered centralization, because it reduced the competency required to be a soldier and wiped out private soldiering, this would reorient that entire relationship. It actually creates individual wizards again, just like we had in the Merlin private soldiering night era that once existed. So it's a rebalance, a reconfiguration of all of these things, and a reorientation of the corporate model. And so this and like I said, these soldiers that are coming back, I mean, this is the future of soldiering. Super soldiers like this guy, using all of these tools, and like we heard from Alex Karp, this guy's he's not gonna Anthropic, what? They can replace these things any day. So the virtue signaling won't work, and the reorientation of this stuff, just like Alex Karp said, won't work. Now you get the Jack story, right? We're making blocks smaller today. Here's my note to the company. Andrew Yang predicting here 4,000 jobs cut out of 10,000 directly attributed to AI. Universal basic income is inevitable. I believe the same thing. I don't believe this was necessarily AI. I think Beth Bezos here, he overhired, is the real excuse. I think they're just using the AI excuse to fire people. Now, people are becoming more efficient, that's for sure, with AI. So there is some truth to it. But even now, there's fake news about this. Everyone's trying to say, oh, he threw a big $68 million party. Jack Dorsey's a bad cash manager. He says here, I'm pretty sure the 68 million Block party supposedly threw before the layoffs is fake. Block had an overall increase in SG&A expenses of 68 million, and it said some of that would be attributed to the company-wide event. That does not mean they threw a $68 million party. So lots of people questioning Jack Dorsey's spending of money. I think Jack said it perfectly. It's true, there are efficiencies, and the size of companies is changing for many reasons, including AI. I don't think this is just because everything works so better with AI. They're making money, they're doing well. They hired a lot of these people, but that's just reality. The corporate structure is changing as a result, just like the military structure is changing because of the costs of violence and the tools that are coming online. The world of work is changing too. And I've been preparing you for that for a long time. All jobs are changing for these reasons. All the fake laptop jobs are changing. Beauty On says the same thing. There is no plan. The West is not a communist planned economy. You're on your own, and no one owes you anything, nor are they obliged to do your thinking for you, employ you, feed you, or chew your food for you. There are no regular people. All men are equal and not divided into artificial classes. You're going to need to start thinking for yourself and organizing. If you can do this at scale, you'll be protected. If you wait for a white knight to save you, as you were trained to do, you're finished. And that's what's been Bitcoiners have been saying for a long time. We're planning for a fiat apocalypse because the corporate structure itself was a product of fiat manipulation, of market manipulation. Markets rewarded this for a long time. But those things are changing. Here's Prof. Sainonge talking about AI crashing this part of the economy. The 1990s internet was like a great at turning billion-dollar industries into million-dollar industries like newspaper. Wall Street is terrified that will happen 5 times faster and 10 times wider. But it's happening in Wall Street. The incentives are there. Just look at what happened. They were heavily whoopsie daisy, folks. Had a bit of a internet flame out, but I'm back. Don't know what happened, but that's okay. We're back. So look at what happened at in the market and how much they rewarded what happened yesterday with Block. Block stock up 20% on those plans. And indeed, here, Sightbringer says, this is the market doing what it always does when it believes a company just found a way to turn uncertainty into margin. A 40% cut is a strategic admission that the old operating model is dead. Investors are rewarding 3 things at once: cost-based reset, signal of new production function, credibility event. And of course, it looks like the company Deep Take, this is the first clean public evidence that markets are now pricing AI-enabled headcount compression as a feature, not a bug. So they're going to be incentivized to do this. And like I said, I don't think it's actually the AI. I think a lot of companies are way overburdened. They took one look at what Elon Musk did with Twitter without AI and realized we can do the same. Look at what happened yesterday. So just to show you where incentives and market will predict where this is going, this is what you get in the market if you fire a bunch of people. This is what you get. And my kids love Duolingo. This is what you get when you don't. Duolingo yesterday, one of the worst crashes you'll ever see. My kids play Duolingo all the time, from 540 US trash tokens to 89 US trash tokens on the same day. So you're seeing these, and Duolingo is because people are using AI, better structure, better education, something like that. Now, the presentation that I gave all those years that I'm sharing with you again now, again, go back to the frame that I have on trickle down economics that applies to this scenario here. So the way I presented this to Wall Street for many years, the way I presented it at Columbia when I did the presentation there, is you see this trickle down to the individual, this superpower of cryptography being trickled down from military, state secrets to corporations in this brief period between 1980 and 2008. And then, of course, when Bitcoin is invented, we now have the magic of math and cryptography, literally like a wand, literally magic being given to individuals. And once that happens, the strange effect, like we've been talking about with Block, is the reorientation of the economy. And AI is a part of it, but not exactly. It's not the only story. It all lends to Coase theorem. And here's a explanation from the great Scott Adams about Coase theorem. And it's just a little joke, but I'll explain it, what Coase theorem is. Some of you already know, but for those who don't, it's always good to have a refresher. So Coase theorem is otherwise known as the theory of the firm and the reason for which companies exist in the first place. And so here's a Dilbert comic that describes it. Rebels have threatened to attack our Elbonian factory unless we give them 1 million US trash tokens. That's outrageous. Tell them their competition offered to not attack us for half that price. Negotiations begin. And the Elbonian terrorists say that wouldn't even cover our costs of not attacking. And so what it comes down to is transaction externalities. What it comes down to, the simple way of describing Coase theorem comes from a noise complaint, right? So a noise complaint, you go to a judge, noise complaints still work the way the system is supposed to work. You complain to the judge, look, my neighbor's too loud. He's playing loud music. The judge will try to come down in the middle and he'll say to the person making the loud noise, playing the music, he says, you have to stop that by 10 p.m. No more. And then he'll look at the person complaining and he'll say, you have to stop complaining before 10 p.m. No more. Everyone then sort of goes away, and justice is found in some, equal sense. Both people have satisfaction and limits, and that's how it's supposed to work. Now, what ends up happening, and what Coase theorem is about, and what the theory of the firm is about, is that both parties walk away not too happy about this decision in a sense, right? There's some satisfaction, but if they wanted more, if the neighbor wanted more quiet, or the other neighbor was running a business and the music was loud and he's got revenue because it's actually a party. And so what you end up doing is he'd hire a lawyer. And once he hires a lawyer, he's now brought some of that transaction externality outside. He's now got support. And what he could do after is maybe go and influence the town council. What he can go after is maybe influence with political donations what's going on with the elections and who the prosecutor is and who the judge is. And suddenly you start having someone put their hand on the scale. Now, the reason that would compel them to hire all these people, a lobbyist, a lawyer, is to pervert the system. And what we're living through is a perverted system. The corporations, the theory of the firm, exist to pervert the system. That's why they're there. Because it would be too difficult to renegotiate with an independent lawyer every time and to go find a lobbyist every time. You bring it all in-house. That's what corporations do. They do it to tip the scales and rebalance things in their favor, which is they're totally entitled to. They can change the rules. They can change the laws. That's why you end up having a corporation, though. And that's why you end up bringing all of these functions in-house, because it's just much more expensive to not do that. So it's the friction and the transaction externality of negotiating perpetually with lawyers and lobbyists. Instead, you have your own lobbyist. Instead, you have your own lawyer, and they just take orders. And there's no more negotiation. And the corporation is the embodiment of all of these people together. So a corporation, as we can all tell very preternaturally, as we all understand in our system, as many movies have let us know, they're evil entities. Now, they're not all evil, but they're regularly cast as the villain in a story simply because that ends up being what happens. The corporation is interested in its own survival, not the survival of the individuals making it up. That's why it's the David and Goliath framework that many movies are based on, that our reality is based on. We flippantly and mimetically call corporations soulless and evil, and it's not always true. Of course, there's plenty of great corporations, but they're not that interested in being family and being your friend and looking out for you. That's long gone. When they valued their staff more because they needed them more, because they didn't have tools like AI, then that's what happened. But now that we've got this trickle down of the economy, now that we are bifurcating, so I guess I'll go back to what Jimmy Wales says, and all this UBI, we're going to need UBI. It's true, not a lot of people are going to be able to survive this. And what do we do with them? Well, for now, we create two parallel economic systems. We do one that is the sludge people money, the sludge tokens, the trash tokens, that are just going to be food stamps. It's why I've been telling you they're going to be food stamps for a long time. Political money will get what they asked for. They're going to be political money. The energy industry and Wall Street and actual doers are going to break away and use Bitcoin. That's what Jimmy Wales isn't seeing, that we're actually separating ourselves into two distinct categories: the real economy and the sludge people economy. And the sludge people economy is going to have this money. So you'll see people saying, oh, what they did at Block is such bad news. A stock pumping 20% on the announcement that 40% of the company is getting replaced is low-key dystopian. Wrong. The corporation itself, if it was growing. Look at the dystopia of Blade Runner. Why is Blade Runner such a dystopian? It's because the companies run everything. The corporations that are cloning humans and the soulless and faceless nature of them is what we're afraid of. And centralization of power in a government entity is what we're afraid of. Centralization of power in any way is what we become afraid of. That's Bitcoiners' biggest fear. And so this is a decentralizing event. This is the market clearly showing incentives to shrink the size of a corporation is the right path forward. Now, it's painful, which is why we're going to have to create UBI and have some function to take care of these people, at least for one generation. I don't think it'll last more than a generation. But this is Coase theorem at work, which is why I made that presentation for years for Wall Street to show, look, Bitcoin re-architects the economy. It allows for this individual empowerment. AI wasn't even in the mix when I was talking about this, and Bitcoin was enough. Just Bitcoin. Now you add AI, and it's very obvious this is happening. Individual super people are going to be possible now. And these big corporate systems aren't really the path to the future. Now, if anyone's been paying attention, they know that corporations are not your friend and they're not going to watch out for you forever. This would be a much more difficult pill to swallow had it been 20 years ago. But at this point, we know that corporations don't really have much of a obligation, or they show much loyalty to their staff. A little bit in Japan that's left. But we're going through this pivot. Corporate downsizing is real. We're here now. And the size of a typical corporation in the S&P 500 is not going to be the same as it was 20 years ago, which was already not the same as it was 20 years before that, which is already not the same as it was 24 years before that. The trend to grow huge companies sort of ended with the industrial war machine and the 1950s and 60s and the consolidation of manpower within these huge entities. Once computers started, we started to see the trend, and we started to see the size of the largest companies in value shrink. And now they're getting smaller and smaller. Soon there'll be one person. We're going to go back to very tiny companies. That's why you hear all these people in AI and Bitcoin, a guy like Brian Romelli constantly talking about the one person economy. It's why you look at all the trouble on Wall Street, or sorry, on Hollywood. Again, it looks like the Netflix deal for Warner Brothers is not going to go through. Who wants any of this trash? You're going to be able to make it on your own. You're not going to need all of this burden. The IP is worth something, but that's about it. So it's dystopian, and you can see if you stay on that end, but that's where Bitcoin really does also create a contrast with AI. Bitcoin is the other tool that allows us to see this bifurcated economy, this two-sided economy. And you had at the Bitcoin for Corporations show yesterday, and this is why it's an important quote. Here he says, Bitcoin's do loop will prevail over AI's doom loop. And that's the real new economy. It is that. It's people doing and achieving. Here's Max Kaiser saying the same thing. Stop dooming. The present is great and the future looks even better. The 10-year Treasury is flirting sub 4%. Mortgage rates fell below 6% for the first time in 3 years. Inflation per trueflation is below 1%. Unemployment is less than expected. Blah, blah, blah. Things are falling. Consumer spending is steady. Things getting better. Military recruitment at record highs. Crime is down. Illegal truck drivers being cleared off the road. Cartels are imploding. Wages increasing. Stop dooming. If you are, the present is great and the future looks even better indeed. And so, just look at how busted and fucked up our systems are. I mean, here's news yesterday. This is going to turn a bunch of people out of the work, right? Hassan Sajwani saying yesterday Abu Dhabi launched Tesla's FSD trials, and today Abu Dhabi is confirming overseeing the pilot operation of autonomous logistics and freight trucks in Abu Dhabi Emirate. The project is the first of its kind in the region and aims to advance smart mobility solutions. Look at what the old system gave us compared to this. What would you rather? Would you rather a Somali driving down the wrong side of the street with a corrupted commercial driver's license? Is this what we're trying to preserve? Is this doomerism? Wanting this to be gone is doomerism? Look at this motherfucker. He can't read, and he's driving a goddamn 18 fucking wheeler. After the president pointed this out at the State of the Union, we still can't fucking stop it. He's driving the wrong way on a highway, a 4-lane highway. He's on the wrong side. He can't read. He's from Somalia with a corrupted fake driver's license, a commercial driver's license. And this is what we have. And we think it's doomerism that this is going to take his job. Sorry, guys. This is why we're separating the economy. There's some people who are still into the illiterate Somali guy getting a driver's license. And then if he can't drive, it's a human rights abuse. He's illiterate. He can't fucking read. He can't be on the road. He can't be at the Leering Center. It's too late for him. He's fucked. It's over. He's got to get the sludge money. He's got to get the UBI. That's it. And that's why things are moving in this direction. You see Cernovich say the exact same thing. Fisher King saying a good jobs report and market drops 650 points. Think how backwards that is. Market is worried about rate increases to tamp inflation. What does that mean? This is from a long time ago, 2022. Cernovich says was talking to a group of guys and said how 40 years ago we'd be structural engineers or some such, but all of that, of all of us work in the economy of financial engineering, investing, etc. Context was infrastructure decay. Apples to Fed applies to Fed actions too. Fake economy is the whole game. That's why Bitcoin is the tonic for Wall Street. That's why Bitcoin going to Wall Street is an apocalyptic event, because it's going to change Wall Street. There still will be a Wall Street left at the end, but it's not going to be where the best and brightest go anymore. Not even close. It's going to have some other lure and attraction. And Cernovich saying time to build the real economy again. That's the real story that's going on here. That's what Trumpism is all about. That's why Trump has embraced Bitcoin. Trump is going to bifurcate the economy. He's going to crack it in two. The energy companies, that's why all the energy companies are coming next week to build their own energy. Why all the Silicon Valley companies are coming to Washington, D.C. next week to build they're becoming energy companies. And they're not going to have to hire a bunch of people. Blue collar people, yeah, the blue collar jobs are going to remain, and farmer and all these old jobs will remain. The old jobs are the new jobs. No more of the fake jobs, financial engineering. That's what got us into this mess. These jobs are not going to make it. And so, and remember, the political system that got us here, that allowed the Somali to drive wrong way down the road, that whole political system is also what's on the way out. And, I talk to people all the time This is a way to understand it. Will Sexton says you already live in Rome post-apocalypse. The coins are worth nothing and no one is fixing the concrete. The people are foreign and the land is being looted. The news just hasn't reached our village yet. And it's true. The whole fiat system is already gone. When people worry about, how are we gonna react? What are we gonna do? I had a conversation just the other day here in Barbados, because they're kind of at their wits' end here in Barbados. They have a very corrupt government, a globalist government that won every seat during the election last week. They immediately did some floor crossings, then made floor crossings illegal, and just very corrupt. And people are frustrated. They're like, what are we going to do? We have the money. No one's going to fix anything. And I told them, chill out, guys, chill out. Barbados has a tremendous advantage in that you still have the old jobs. I can go down to the beach and meet a fisherman and he's going to sell me fish. That's not the case on other islands. You can't just go and meet a fisherman anymore. They got rid of all that 20 years ago, 10 years ago. The Bill Gates shit, go be a tourism business, scientists, NGOs, get a white collar job. They got all that problem all around here in the Caribbean, white collar jobs everywhere. No one knows how to do shit. You go to Puerto Rico, all the young people already went to America. When I tell Americans who live in Puerto Rico will sometimes ask me, just tell me what Barbados is like. And they'll listen like this. And I'll say, well, there's families everywhere and there's construction people everywhere and there's groundskeepers everywhere. Rakeman is everywhere. Fishermen on the pier, farmers up in the hills. We get our own food around here in Barbados. You can import some, but it's not like the other islands. We can get actual fresh beef. My delivery guy was late last week for my beef delivery. It's because his cow was giving birth and he sent me the video of the new calf coming out. And it's just awesome. It's just amazing. And that's typical here. And that's what makes this island so unique. And one of the reasons for which I'm here. It's also why I love Vermont and why I love Quebec, because these places still have the old jobs. They survived and they didn't get all laptop jobbed. And it looked poor and shitty for a while when laptop jobs and financial engineering jobs were the best. But now that those are collapsing and people still know how to bake a cake, people still know how to raise a cow, people still know how to farm without all these toxic ingredients because they never bothered industrializing because their land was too shit in the first place to ever industrialize. The road for a place like Quebec or Vermont or Barbados to get back to a productive economy, because the old jobs are still here, is much shorter. And that's the good news. The fall of Rome is less obvious to them. And it's even with the Bajans, I was saying, well, what are they going to do about, they're all upset the roads are too small and no one can afford anything anymore, and the cars are becoming more and more expensive. They have a huge duty on cars here in Barbados because of the limited size of the island, and having cars on the island comes with, like, you got to get rid of the cars. There's a huge fee you have to pay up front if you want to bring the car in to get rid of old cars, because there's we don't have a junkyard. There's 0 junkyards in Barbados. So, people can leave a car or two on their property as they rot and sit there for parts. You see that here and there around the island. But there's no junkyard to deal with the cars. I don't know where. They must go drop them out in the ocean somewhere. I don't know what they do with them exactly. But you pay for that up front. So getting things into the island is not so simple for these reasons. And so when, Bajans are asking me what's going to happen with our economy and the cars, I'll tell them, look, the secret to the cars are going to be it's going to be amazing. You're going to have the self-driving cars on the highway. You're probably going to extend the highway a little bit, but all these because Barbados is so old, the streets are they're built for horses and the houses are already all there. So when cars came, you're tight. And there's streets everywhere and they're not grid. They're all wavy and weaving everywhere. And they're all blind corners, and you have just enough room for a car to come and go for 2 lanes on most of these. And it's very stressful to drive here. Last night we were at dinner with some friends, another homeschool family and the kids and everything. And just driving home is very stressful because once you get on the highway, it's fine. The one highway where the speed limit's like 80 kilometers. So, 40 something miles. Once you get to the highway, it's not so bad. It's a little wider and there's at least a bit of a median and a little what do they call it again? When you have a side of the road, right? There's I don't remember what it's called all of a sudden, but they've got, you have a bit of error room, right? So the future though is just going to be golf carts, small drivetrains. And why that's the case is here. You can even see in this story, right? This fella here is talking about how auto parts are about to be gone. Auto parts manufacturers collapse, factories shut down, and parts are drying up. We're in deep trouble. Well, yeah, but that's the old system, right? That's the old system. The new system with these electric golf cart style cars are going to be a very simple drivetrain that can be modular in the sense that, you get the supercapacitor, you get the motor, and you get the chassis and four wheels. And then the top of the car can be anyone's design. These things go much slower. They're much lighter, no combustion engine. Because there's no combustion engine, the weight of the car can go way down. A much lighter car means much less road maintenance. Everyone here has Land Cruisers and stuff like that. That's a big toll on these roads. These are heavy, heavy trucks and vehicles. And now if everyone's in a tiny, lightweight car, the worst that's going to happen, first of all, is a head-on collision is maybe a broken leg. I've crashed many. I raced golf carts. You can't kill yourself racing a golf cart. Like, you're not going to die. I flipped them. I used to work at a golf course, so we'd go pick up all the garbage in the morning before anyone started golfing at like 4 something as the sun was rising. We'd come down some of the hills on the course and it would be all dewy. And I would always pull the handbrake and try and do donuts across the dewy hill. We all had our own golf carts. So we had racetracks and we would have time trials and we'd be passing lanes and all this kind of great stuff. We'd race around the course all the time. That's what we did every single day, was race these goddamn golf carts everywhere. And it was our hobby and our joy as we worked there. And so I've crashed a lot of golf carts and I know what it's like. It sucks, but it's like, you're not going to die. You're going to break a leg, maybe. I never even saw anything like that happen. I'm saying what's worst case. And I'm telling you, I've my worst accident was trying to pass someone and they had just, sometimes where I live in ditches, you have this in Vermont as well. You have this probably across all of New England, but you've got ditches on the sides of the dirt roads. And then a couple of times a summer when all the vegetation, the weeds have grown really high, there's a truck that'll come by and just shear it all and doesn't pick it up. They don't rake it up. They just cut it and it falls into the ditch, but it gives the illusion that the ditch is part of a field and you don't know there's a hole there. So I was passing a friend of mine with the golf carts and he was trying to drive me off the road because I had a faster golf cart and he's trying to push me off the road and I'm going to be able to pass him and I'm just moving on the outside, but the ditch was there and everything was cut. I didn't know where the fall off was. I knew it was a ditch, but they just cut it. So I didn't really know where the line for the ditch started. And I fell right into the ditch, big to-do, smashed side of the golf cart. It was in a golf cart accident, but I walked away. It's fine. Like I was on the up, it was upside down. It's an abrupt stop into mud and dirt and rocks and everything. Now I got, I had trouble with the broken golf cart that got me into some trouble, but I was fine. And that's about as bad as you're going to get as an accident. We flipped doing the spinoramas too. Because sometimes it just loses its weight, right? And just centripetal force, and we fell. So here, this guy's talking about all these parts. What you're going to see with cars is going to be beautiful and amazing. You're going to start to see a local cottage industry in car manufacturing and selling again. You're not going to get cars delivered from some fucking huge super factory and God knows where, Japan or Slovakia or any of these places. You're going to have wheels, batteries, and motors delivered. You're going to buy those pieces. And then locally, they're going to re-engineer golf carts to look like any car that you've loved in your life. You're going to see them as like old Corvettes. They're going to look like old Porsches. You're going to have people who are good at making the top that you buy the car for the style. They're going to be quiet. They're not going to be super fast. The super fast is going to be self-driving, almost like taxis that you just get in and out of. But in local areas, you're going to get out, just like we have scooters on every stupid street corner in America. You're going to get out of the station. You're going to get on your scooter, your three-wheeler, your four-wheeler. There's going to be all these inexpensive things. The future of travel to America is to come and there's going to be no cars on these roads, not side of the road shit, right? We're not going to be able to keep the cars on the road. It's all going to become, all this corporate stuff is going to become too expensive. But you're going to have people, and that's what we don't have today. Look what the corporate model did for cars. They can't even fix cars because they need the fucking computer. They need to order the part. They need all this stupid software now, all these boondoggles. What you're going to get in the future is the old ways where any guy can put a car together, any guy can fix the car. Anyone can do any of these things because the number of parts needed for a car are going to shrink dramatically. It's a combustion engine that creates all this trouble. And I love oil, don't get me wrong. I love oil. I got a V8. I love combustion engines. I love gasoline. I love emissions. As you all know, I don't care about any of that global warming stuff. Obviously, all fake. It's the same scientists worried about the squeaking on the basketball courts. None of it matters to me. But what does matter to me is I want a $5,000 car that I can pick up that my friend made. He's really good, like boats, like fiberglass shells, 3D printed shells that are just going to click onto these chassis. And, Barbados will have its own cars. They'll have their own style of cars again. New England will have its own cars. California will have its own cars. Florida will have its own cars. Everyone's going to have their own style of cars again. Some will be remod old cars, old styles, but you're going to see regionality in vehicles again. And not any of this, every car is the same fucking color. Every car looks the same. They all copy each other. They're all doing the same product. They all have 25,000 parts that nobody needs. So you're going to start seeing this complete change in the economy. And so when I was explaining this to the Bajans, and that's what a Barbados person is a Bajan, by the way, they were like, okay, now I can see it. And even just driving home last night, you know how pleasant it would be without having to drive like this on a tight road with a car that can kill me, with other people coming at me at 30 miles an hour and I'm going 30 miles an hour. And if we hit each other, we're in fucking trouble. It's going to hurt because we're all coming head on, tight. Imagine I was just in a bike and the wind and the noise and the breeze, and I'm just driving along, and even if I get into a car accident, the materials themselves and the weight of the car, which doesn't have to support a combustion engine anymore. And I'm not talking like Tesla magnet electric cars here or the Chinese electric ones. I'm talking about a cell phone battery and small engines and 30 miles an hour max. But on an island like this, do you need to go faster than 30 miles an hour if you're just going in one area? Of course not. That'll get you. The difference would be a stressful travel that takes 15 minutes or a fun travel that takes 10 minutes. So it's just going to be the way things go. The structure and scale of companies are changing for this reason. And just like I said with the Somali driver and the Somali driver and the self-driving car in Dubai, that's a tale of two systems right there. You can see why democracy, for example, is such a scam, and why these centralized systems are such scams. Because look, the Minnesotans love giving the Somalis the license because of how corrupted the whole system is. Every Somali vote is equal to every person who was born in Minnesota's vote. It's the same, right? But in UAE, where it's a kingdom, they're going to have no trouble with it. Just look at how ethnic all of democracy is coming. This happened in England yesterday, and Peter McCormick noticing the Green Party just won a by-election despite their new leader being unable to articulate a coherent position on economics. The pitch was basically be kind and a bit of dancing. We are in serious trouble. And all of the election in England in this by-election that happened yesterday went according to ethnic lines. You even had Sky News saying basically all elections are just ethnic now. And so that's a big problem, right? I'll find that quote just to show you, but it looks like that's what's happening. Here's the vote last night, and you can hear what they're saying about democracy. This is already cooked, already all ethnic. You're already living in Rome, guys. It already fell. And you know, you got that in England. You got the wealth tax over in Denmark. They're coming back. This fucking troll is coming back with their fucking health plan. Imagine the people you could have representing your country from Denmark, and you come up with this fucking swamp donkey sludge person. Look at her. Look at her compared to what you could have in Denmark, and you get this one. And now she wants to take everyone's money who makes too much. So the whole thing's toast, and it's not going to make it. And that's why you've got the biggest asset manager in Europe. They get it too. The money understands what's happening. They're moving. That's why Wall Street is the most important thing to corrupt for Bitcoin. Getting the wealth managers, getting these people to understand the economy is bifurcating, that no one's going to listen to the fiat fucking ugly person from Denmark and their wealth tax. They're going to move. What do you think's going on? Exactly what Sovereign Individual said. We're on that timeline. It's exactly what's happening. You know, because the systems are as bad as you can imagine. Here's, you know, old Ghislaine. Did you know that old Ghislaine, Ghislaine's sister is literally in control of the computer systems? Did you know that? I didn't know that. This is news to me. Look at her. Ghislaine, not Ghislaine. So it's a corrupt system, and the quicker we get away from these sludge people, the better. This is a necessary split. So when you hear about Block firing everyone, they're a Bitcoin company. It should be remarked that a Bitcoin company was first in this, because it's just reality. It's just reality, and there's no way around it. The only way around it is to realize that the old jobs are going to pay. They're going to be worthwhile. We're going to solve material want. It's not to feed yourself. We're going to figure that out. That's why the sludge people are going to have the UBI for the food. That's why the money is going to be food stamps and is temporary change. But the industries that matter and the things that pay individuals for their actual work that is relevant is going to continue to be the path that is viable for us to build the future. And the efficiencies are going to be great. This is what capitalism is really supposed to be. It's not supposed to land you in a fake laptop job in order that you can be first at the sludge feeder trough. That doesn't matter. You're going to be able to create a much better system for people and make money yourself off of it, but it will save everybody else money and reduce the cost of living. We're recalibrating everything from the ground up for this reason, because there's nothing really worth saving from that old system. I mean, look, this is what they're doing instead of the SAVE Act in America. This is what we got. Instead of the SAVE Act, we got a dog day, and they don't have time to pass the most important law in America, but they have time to do a dog day. And so Yarvin says, destroy everything that exists. Exactly. Most of this is not worth saving, guys. And now I still think we're going to get our way on this SAVE Act, because remember, the most important story no one's telling you every day that is true from now into the midterms is that Trump is holding so many stories, so many almost like things he can sprinkle into pixie dust that he can sprinkle into the news cycles whenever he wants. He's got Maduro. He's got the goods on the 2020 election. He's going to be able to continuously move them with news events. So right now you just have this campaign about how corrupt and stupid Thune is and these others about SAVE Act and the talking filibuster. But Rasmussen reports saying here again, update, I have the Dominion source code. Here we are. There are multiple issues to consider when stealing an election, and the first line of which is always avoiding detection. Indeed, here we're seeing the source code is there. We're going to be able to find out more. When I told you Trump is going to be dominating the news cycle and is going to be one step ahead from now until the midterms, this is what I mean. Now, many people are already saying that they're going to find a way to come back. Here's Rick Scott saying he's going all in. He's surging hard to rally the GOP senators. They're saying they can't do it, not going to get to the SAVE Act yet, filibuster, blah, blah. So you're going to get it. I believe it's going to happen. And you're going to see the news cycle controlled from now until then. And if it isn't, remember, money will incentivize even more. And even if the SAVE Act doesn't pass, here's Yarvin with another astute observation regarding Thune and McConnell. So here, Malmus Berryman says Thune, a McConnell protege, sings from the same hymnal as his mentor. Ultimately, this all comes down to money. Yarvin says total 2026 our midterm spending will be $4 billion, 0.5% of Elon's wallet, with vanilla political engineering that no one has redesigned in 50 years. I approve this message on Boomer TV. Fuck Mars, fuck the moon, conquer Earth, better planet at a better price. And exactly, money will talk in this whole thing. If Trump wins the economy between now and then, SAVE Act won't matter. If he gets control of the Federal Reserve and unleashes all of these industries, none of this political shit is going to make any difference. And again, Trump holds the keys to people's attention and to the economy. And those two things, the keys to the attention, he can go in on stealing 2020. He can go in on Epstein. He can go in on 9/11. He can continue to tell you that the old system is way more corrupt than you think, while also showing you the new system. The contrast is going to be exactly the same as the contrast that we're seeing, and it's why we're bifurcating the economy. One sludge people economy, one Bitcoiner economy. And you're going to see more and more people, even if it isn't a Democratic majority, it won't matter. The Bitcoiners with the AI and with Elon and with all the productive people and with all the Bitcoiners and with Wall Street totally infected with a terminal case of Bitcoinitis are going to go exit velocity to the moon. The sludge people are going to be stuck with these stupid systems. Nothing's going to work out. And it doesn't really matter. They can't compete. They're so pathetic, right? And remember, Trump is holding these stories. They're still on the old thing. Here's Hillary. She got deposed yesterday in the Epstein, just to show you the kind of narrative control you have. Hillary tries her best, right, to make it all about Russia, Russia, Russia again. She tried Russia, Russia, Russia in 2016 in her Epstein deposition yesterday. She still thinks she can go back to Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's not going to work out for her. Remember, Comer's a Bitcoiner, and she's being obviously, it's not going to work out the way she thinks. This is the end of Hillary Clinton. They're going to be able to tie Russia, 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 the misery that the American mind was subjected to, and he's going to be able to control this story through declassification and leaks and everything else, strategic leaks from now until then. And, she tried to say she'd never met him. Of course, it's not going to work out. Roger Stone since Hillary Clinton said she's never met Epstein, even though there are many pictures of them together. Why didn't anyone ask her who invited Epstein Pimp Maxwell to Chelsea's wedding? She said she was a +1. That's why she was there. But her lying is just too obvious. Here's Norm Macdonald reminding us years ago that everything she says is, a sociopathic lie. So Trump's got her trapped, but it's to prove how terrible the system is. And it's no audio on Norm. No kidding. Are you kidding me? No. Are you kidding me? I can't believe I missed that. No audio. Well, I got to play it for you guys. How did I miss that? Thanks for helping, guys. My mistake. I should have looked at the quotes. I'll play one or two of them for you because they're so good. No audio on Norm. I can't believe it. Where does the audio go? Why does it work and then not work?
Is the First Lady a compulsive liar, though? It's beginning to look that way. In an interview on last night's 2020, intended to promote her new book, It Takes a Village, Mrs. Clinton folded under tough questioning by Barbara Walters and admitted that, in fact, it does not take a village, and furthermore, that she was aware that it does not take a village when she wrote the damn book. Meanwhile, President Clinton is hard at work on Tuesday's State of the Union address, in which he'll focus on crime, education, and the economy. At the request of the First Lady, part of the President's speech will be huge lies. More questions about Hillary Rodham Clinton's truthfulness. In an interview this week, the First Lady claimed that she won the women's 100-meter dash at the 1956 Olympics, and that she had an IQ of, quote, over 700. When it was pointed out to her that these were not especially good lies, Mrs. Clinton responded, "I know, I have a problem," and then added, "I invented the formula for 7-Up." In Whitewater news, federal regulators quizzed Hillary Clinton at the White House this week and gave her a perfect score on the lying section. She's a dirty liar. For years, Hillary Rodham Clinton has told people that she was named for the first man to climb Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary. But as Esquire magazine recently pointed out, Sir Edmund did not climb Mount Everest until 1953, 6 years after Hillary was born. However, the First Lady does have a good explanation for the discrepancy. She loves to lie. A former Arkansas banker told the Senate Whitewater Committee this week that he gave Bill Clinton a $20,000 loan as a favor, even though it was, quote, unacceptable banking practice. In response, President Clinton stated that he has no recollection of such a loan, while First Lady Hillary Clinton said, "We've never even been to Arkansas."
So good Norm stuff. All right. And, you know, just to show you that the world is getting better and healing on this stuff, here's great news. And I'm a big fan of this. So we get this from Gaza. Looks like they're going to get some soccer fields, FIFA Academy, National Stadium. This is what it's all about, building these citadels, building these new cities. And I've got even better news before we go for the weekend. Don't forget to look up tomorrow night We got this February 28th. Don't forget to look up. A rare celestial spectacle is unfolding. 6 planets are tracing a graceful arc across the evening sky. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have another lunar eclipse. And with all this Terra Luna, Jane Street stuff going on, with everything we've seen from the FTX story coming back into focus, remember that was all with lunar eclipses. And so we'll have Heather on Wednesday, the return of Heather. She's been in Mexico, so we haven't been able to have her on the show. She'll be around Wednesday to talk about all these amazing celestial events. And if I'm right, and I have no idea if I'm right, but I always say big things happen with these eclipses, and I've been right so far with the eclipses. So maybe we'll have a even clearer vision to the golden age as of next Wednesday. I expect so. Weirdly, I expect so. Heather Zilla, indeed. Shit's lining up. Indeed, shit is lining up. All right, folks. Indeed, never neglect my wingman on audio. Hasn't had audio for the last, no sound, but probably for the best. That was the Hillary one. Space drops incoming. Oh boy, 93 US trash token for Silver. Someone is going to get wrecked. Forensic on X will be interesting. Let's hear it for the sludge people. Indeed. Peter Berniger is from my hometown in Wisconsin. Hortonville, rise up, barely 45. Indeed. Our divine destiny and testimony, judging and justice in Christ Jesus will order all of God Almighty creation. Indeed. Satanic corporate empire versus Christian Republic militia. Have fun staying poor, says indeed. Remember, Messiah will destroy all the works of Satan from earth, forming the nations of the saved. That us, Gentiles, grafted onto his peace, true divinity. Edison Motors in BC, Canada is worth checking out, says 72 Jet. Hybrid electric, build your own, right to repair. Exactly. Yeah, that's the future right there. Future czar of Barbados, Rakeman. Future looking bullish. Luddites mostly affected. Indeed. Exactly. So you're saying everything is computer. Space lasers, mercenaries. Indeed. Heard tell that Iran situation is coming to a boiling point. Many saying this that day might unfold. Unfortunate news. Chef Zero, yeah, I think it's going to be okay. That's what we were talking about today. I think it's going to be okay. I could be wrong. I'm only slightly convinced that it's going to be okay in Iran, but I do believe it will be fine. All right, folks, that brings us to the end. I should be doing the Canadian show later today. Here, information curve, electric unicycle. Yeah, I know someone who has one. Those are a lot of fun. I've always thought they should put cameras on horses to help train self-driving models. The horse is the original self-driving vehicle. Great idea. Very good idea. Sound is good. Al Gore selling Antarctica timeshares. There was a 10-year study that concluded cars cause smog. Indeed. All right, folks. So I'm about to put the logo on after the logo. Where's Hank? I don't see Hank. I did not see Hank. I'm going to play the clip right now, the logo, followed by the thanks for coming screen. I want to tell you, thanks for coming. If you don't see me at the Canadian show this afternoon, then have a great weekend. I'll see you all Monday morning. Thanks for coming indeed. All right, everyone. Peace.